Hey, you guys are back. How you doing? Listen, we're getting such a great response from you as an audience, and we really, really, really want to thank you. We're the Restorative Justice Hub of Woodlawn. It's the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub, and we are glad to be here. We were on Friday nights, and we switched those nights to on Monday, and the calls have been coming through, and we want to thank you so much. And you've been hitting the website, and we're just really, really grateful to be with you. We got a kind of long show today, so we're going to kind of rush ahead. I want to introduce a very special guest, and you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yes, well, my name is Corey Mason. I'm a community organizer and the co-director of a youth-led, youth-based organization called Fearless Leading by the Youth. Fearless Leading by the Youth, we have a mission statement, which it stands for grassroots organizations of youth and the surrounding community by engaging them in community organizing 101 and training theory and in practice, historical cultural orientation, and mentorship and leadership.
Wow, that's a bit. How do you get your funding?
Well, we get our funding by individual donations and community support. So our community want to see us fight for the community and fight on behalf of the community, so they donate and invest in us. And
being youth, you have not only the stamina to do it, but also the ability to connect with younger people to kind of help the base of Woodlawn. And your association with the WRJ Hub is?
Well, we're the grassroots community organizing component of the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub.
So what do you do?
Well, we teach the youth community organizing skill sets such as base building, outreach, and strategic planning.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about who you are.
Well, myself, I'm a Southsider, of course. I'm a native of Woodlawn. That's the community that I'm indigenous to. I am also past gang member as well. In my youth, around my 16, 17-year-old days, I was engaged in the local gangs in my community, which also taught me a lot of organizational skill sets.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let me cut you off just for a second there. Why did you join a gang?
Well, I joined the gang for two purposes: connections and protection. In my community, a lot of youth are engaged in gangs. Pretty much the majority of youth are engaged in gangs. So it was for the benefit of myself and my friends for us to come together and protect ourselves so we can have not only protection amongst ourselves and in our community, but connections afar in other communities where we travel to.
What kind of connections are you talking about?
Well, connections, for instance, in every community where there are gangs, there's certain local gangs. If you're a part of one of the gangs, then you become a connection. You're a connection afar. So let's say you need some help or you're just getting off the bus. There's local gangs that may want to jump you, rob you, whatever, but if you can call one of your friends who can aid and assist you in that moment, then that's a part of the protection that the connection provides.
Okay, but ultimately, how did that work for you?
Well,
because you said you're a former member, and I want people to understand why there are gangs, how the gangs work, and why you're out.
Well, the connections and the protection was great, but at the same time, I saw a bigger purpose for my life. If I wanted connections and protection on a greater level, I saw that I would have to do this and focus my energy towards greater efforts. So I became a community organizer. I saw that the connections in the community, in the street gangs, was beneficial, but at the same time, the connections was connecting me to people who was a detriment and a destructive force in our communities. Okay. I wanted connections to constructive people and constructive forces.
So you got into the political process and also into organizing the community to not only fight for the rights, but to be aware of what the rights were and what resources were available. So you were able to make that transition. I want to talk a little bit about the gang life, just a little bit, and then let's progress it on to something bigger.
Okay.
In the gang life, where are these guns coming from? Not that you know personally. I'm not trying to stick you to that, but pretty much, because I'm sure there's money's generated in the community, but not enough to come in here where 16, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds are walking around with enough money to buy guns. Where are these guns come from?
Well, for the most part, it's common knowledge in the hood and in the streets that the freight trains are being robbed daily, or there's just guns being thrown off of them.
So drop-off points
There's
where
some-
they know that they drop stuff off, and you guys know where to go get it, or whoever knows where to go get them and how to utilize them in drug trafficking or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. So there's really not enough money generated for that. This is being planted in the community, correct?
Yes, there's outside sources that are planting guns in our community.
What's the goal of the outside forces?
Well, the goal of the outside forces is ultimate community
Destruction
and divisiveness.
Okay.
If they give one side of the community guns,
people need to know that. They think, well, these gangbangers and they're selling off drugs and they're bringing in the guns and they're doing this and they're killing people and they're wiping out and they're killing children and doing a lot of this stuff is being planted into the community,
Yes.
which everybody knows and nobody says. Where do drugs come from?
Well, it's a similar source. It's someone outside of the community who's bringing and smuggling these drugs into our communities, whether it's over the borders and across the borders and leading towards across the borders within our community.
Okay, so tell me this. Where are the jobs in the community?
Well, the jobs in the community, ironically, are being funded through the drug trade. Majority of the youth...
You said it.
Yes.
You said it. A majority of the youth have no other employment other than to do crime,
Yes.
which makes them feed on each other and prey on each other, and then therefore you're destructive from the inside out. This is why the program is here today. This is why we have the WRJ Hub show, and I really want to thank Han TV for giving us a platform for this. So just really quickly now, I want you to wrap it up and tell it, how can we overcome this? How can we get out? What are you doing to help see that young people aren't drawn to the lure of being a part of the game for protection, which really doesn't exist, and also for work, which really doesn't exist, because these kids are 10, 12, 14 years old, being eaten alive. The only people that are making money are the people who have planted the drugs in the community, or the undertakers who are putting the kids away. How do we get out of this?
Well, first and foremost, we have to just be able to invest in our youth. We have to be able, because once we invest in our youth, we invest in our futures. We also can just be a shining light for the future youth. We can be role models. That's what Fearless Leading by the Youth and people such as myself, a leader of Fearless Leading by the Youth, does. We provide a guiding light to say, yes, you can be a destructive force in your community, and you can be a leader within these street organizations, or you can be a part of a community organization that is a constructive force in the community that connects people and the youth to education, to jobs, and employment. Because our main focus is education and economics.
Hit on the education.
Education.
What kind of education did you have?
Oh, well, education was key to me. After I was kicked out of Hyde Park Academy, in my local community where I'm indigenous to, I had two options mainly for my dean, was to go to Robeson or South Shore. But I found that the alternative school systems such as Youth Connection Charter Schools, like in which I attended Youth Connection Leadership Academy, once I became a student of the Youth Connection Charter Schools and Youth Connection Leadership Academy, I was a student vanguard, I was a part of the principal cabinet, and I was exposed to all type of opportunities that CPS did not provide
When
for
you
me.
know better, you do better. Would you
Yes.
say that's when you're exposed to things that are totally different from what you think is the height of the hood to being where you compete on a level just neck and neck with people who are not only educated but who are economically sound, who are reaching back to help others, who are spiritually sound, who are living a different lifestyle, that when you know better, you do better?
Yes, and I also went on to graduate college as well, 2015. So I got my bachelor's degree in sociology from a private HBCU, Philanthropy College. Shout out.
Yeah, shout
But at
out.
the same time, I come back to my community to help to teach the youth skill sets
Yes.
to help to bring me out of the community, such as organizing, such as investing in our community, such as being a positive force in the community.
Well, I'm tell you something. We're trying to make things happen with the WRJ Hub, and you've been a very key part for it. And I want to thank you for taking out your time this afternoon to come and talk about what the bad side of it is and what the good side of it is, which is your involvement. You got to want to do better. You got to know that there is better. And you've done some really phenomenal work. And I want guys, if you want to call in and ask any questions, the number at the bottom of the screen is 312-738-1060. And you can call in and we can get Corey hopefully back to do something. We'll show you a little bit about how to contact the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub. And that is, the telephone number is 773-536-9317. And the email address is wrjhub@gmail.com. And we are back. We have another guest who's here with us today. And we want to thank you for coming in to be with us. We want to introduce yourself.
Yes. My name is Greg Gaither. I am a social worker working with the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub. One of the agencies with the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub is the Woodlawn Reentry Project, which I founded along with a number of other community members.
Okay, tell us a little bit about what does it do?
Well, the Woodlawn Reentry Project focuses really on education. Most of our youth who are coming in contact with the juvenile justice system don't really do well after they exit the Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. Many of them don't return to school. And when they don't return to school, the recidivism rate is much higher because, of course, if you're out of school, you're on the street, you're going to become involved again with crime, and you'll be channeling back into the Juvenile Detention Center.
Okay, so give me a prime example of who's somebody that made it through, what it is that you're constructively trying to do and helping them with education.
Well, for example, Corey, the individual who was on the show earlier, he was a student at Hyde Park High School. He was expelled at Hyde Park High School. He went on to the Youth Connections Charter School and was able to become successful in getting his degree. That's what we really need to do, is we really need to focus on the education needs of our youth, because ultimately there are a number of services that we provide to youth who are coming out of incarceration, such as addictions. We provide counseling, we provide housing, we provide a menu of services, but the area of education is an area that we need to really focus on, because if you don't connect to school, if you don't complete school, then your chances of being successful in the broader society is going to be very little, or at least very, very little in terms of being able to be successful.
Go directly to what you do. What do you do? If I have a child who was at a high school that was expelled, what's the process? What do you do? How do we connect with you, number one? And then secondly, what's the process? What do you do?
Well, once a student is expelled, there has to be an expulsion hearing in the Chicago Public Schools. At that expulsion hearing, the Chicago Public Schools will provide a referral to an alternative school for that particular student.
Okay.
The problem with that referral is that generally the referral is at an alternative school which is, let's say, 2 or 3 gang turfs from his house. Which means that if he has to cross gang turfs to get to an alternative school, chances are he may not attend that school.
Okay.
And when he doesn't, when he doesn't attend that school, of course, we're talking about the higher risk for recidivism.
Okay, so what's the process? The person has a hearing, and how do you come into play, and how do you get them back into school? And if they fall through the cracks in that school, how does that get resolved? And how do you get them at college? And what do you do? Okay, let's say I just got expelled. What's the process? Give me that process really quickly.
Well, generally, the mother would call our organization, Woodlawn Reentry Project, and we would represent the student at the expulsion hearing. We'll travel to the Chicago Public Schools so that we're there at the expulsion hearing, and that we're able to sit in on the process. And we look at the schools that the kids are being referred to, and we'll generally say, well, this school is really outside of the student's neighborhood area, and it's going to be high risk for him to, he or she to go to this particular facility. So if we're able to get Chicago Public Schools to give us another referral that would be closer to the student's residence, then that would be helpful.
So you know how to recommend that?
Definitely.
Okay, and then what is the process? Take me through it in, say, 30 seconds. You go from, you get there, you find out, you refer them to the right schools so they won't run into gang activity, and then what? How does it work?
Well, sometimes we're not successful in saying to CPS that the student should go to this or that school. And so in some cases, in most cases, students are being referred to schools that are going to put them at risk when they attempt to attend those schools outside of their community. But more recently, in the Woodlawn community, there are a number of charter schools that are being sponsored by the University of Chicago charter school system. And in that instance, we've been in talks, we've attended community forums where we've brought that issue up in terms of serving that population of youth who are going in and out of the juvenile detention center, and how that school will meet those particular needs.
All right, great. What's the process? You get them in the school. What happens? How do you monitor them? How do you get them help with, say they get put out of their house, the housing?
Very good question.
And transportation. What is the format? What's the formula? What happens?
Very good question. That is a process by which we have to connect to the school social worker in that particular school. In most cases, school social workers aren't aware of kids who've been involved with the juvenile justice system. The other thing is that school social workers are not really able to navigate that system on behalf of students, because we find that students in the detention center, or students who are coming in contact with the juvenile system, there's a high incidence of special education for these students. And so in many instances, when they come to the IEP session, which is the individual education program in the Chicago Public Schools, where students are evaluated in terms of their special education needs, that's when the social worker learns that the student has been involved with the juvenile justice system, which is generally too late at that point.
Okay, so now, how do we get a student that, whether they've been assessed by a social worker or not, how do we get somebody who is from 10 years old walking around with gunpowder burns on them, or snapping clips into guns, to a Corey? How do we get them, just real quick, how do we get them from here to here to here to here to be Corey?
Well, there are services that we have to basically have a collective approach. The school has to work hands in hands with community-based organizations such as the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub, Woodlawn Reentry Project, and this is and that's one of the things that we talk about in our community. We have the resilience, we have the resources. When you look at Corey and what he's accomplished, that speaks to the resilience in our communities. We have the answers in our community. We are the ones who have the capacity to develop these programs out of our community. The notion is that black communities, underserved, under-resourced black communities, don't have the resources to develop, so that the resources and the funding go to major organizations instead of grassroots community-based organizations that are down on the ground doing this kind of work. So we need to redirect funding to these organizations. We need to build capacity in our communities, and we need to do that in a partnership with community-based organizations.
Okay, so tell me this. You mentioned the University of Chicago, and which is right on the border of Woodlawn. Can you tell me a little bit about your association with them? What kind of credentials do you have to do what you do?
Yes, I'm a graduate of the University of Chicago School of Social Services Administration. I'm a social worker and educator. I have a master's in education administration and a master's in social service administration.
Okay.
But I too was a student in special ed in the Chicago Public Schools.
Talk it. Tell me.
And we know that when we look at the assessments and we look at this whole initiative on academic achievement, it's good. It's good that we're about academic achievement. It's good that we're pursuing the kind of education programs that are going to put our kids in college.
What do we need to tell the parents, the people who are watching? What do we need to tell them as a form of action, or if you see a child that's having problems, or the gangs are chasing them or trying to recruit them, how do we turn them into a Greg Gaither or a Corey? What do the parents need to do? What do you need to look out for?
Well, the parents need to know about the organizations that exist in the community.
That's what
The Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub is in the Woodlawn community. We're reaching out to community members. We're actively engaging community members, and so use us as a resource. You know, we've been able to in this fiscal this period of fiscal restraints and limited fiscal resources, we've been able to get funding to do the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub, and we basically have taken most of the resources, most of the financial resources that come to us, to the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub, is actually then being directed to our youth.
Okay.
We don't believe in getting 100 or 200 or 300,000, and the money is eaten up at the level of staffs.
Right,
and
at the administrative level. You're putting it into
these money should go to our youth and to their families.
I want to thank you for turning us on to Corey and actually physically bringing him today so he could speak a little bit. There's got to be a sense of hope. And we're reaching out a lot to the gentlemen, but not so much to the female side of it, which we're beginning to start to try to pull together for the fall. And I have a special guest that we're going to bring in for that. And I want you guys to look at our number here and our information. If you have any information about the Woodlawn Restorative Justice Hub, that telephone number is 773-536-9317. And our email address is wrjhub@gmail.com. And we want you guys to please contact us. And really quickly here, I want to bring in one of the mentors from the WRJ Hub. We have Reverend Katherine Jackson, who has been working with us, and we're so glad you're here. I'm trying to give all this information. I know it looks like I'm rushing, but there's so many resources that we are unaware of, and I'm so proud of Corey. And I'm extremely proud of Greg Gaither, who has spent his life advocating for not only the youth, but the Woodlawn community in general. So, Reverend Katherine, I spoke a little bit about the female side of this, and I want you to talk to our audience a little bit about what needs to be done, because they say the hand that rocks the cradle is the one that shapes the culture of a community. So we want you to tell us really quickly in a couple minutes a little bit about what you've done as a mentor and what you see happening in the Woodlawn community.
Quickly, in less than 5 minutes. First, I just want to thank your opportunity to be here. First, I would like to say that with our young people, such as Corey, and also our young ladies, is that what we need to do is instill in them value, self-value, self-worth. We need to be able to tell them that first, number one, they got to know who they are, they got to know who they represent, and they got to understand how God represents them also. I think it's important that we deal with their education, we deal with their self-worth, we deal with their village. It takes a village. I do believe in the village. I believe that it's the church, it's the parents, it's the community, it's mama, it's daddy, it's all of that for us to be able to make things happen. I also believe, my personal philosophy is that one shoe doesn't fit all, and that we all have to be diverse in how we approach our young people. The reason that we do Black Lives Matter is because the young people are saying that we, the adults, are not responding. We're not listening. And it's the same thing. You can listen to Michael Jackson, and you can listen to this on a CD, and you can listen to on 45, you can listen to on MP3 player, and you can listen to DVDs and all that. But guess what? The same message, but just the method is different. Until we as an adults, until we as young people understand what we have to do, we're going to still have problems that we have in our community. And our young ladies out there, let me tell you, sisters and mamas and daughters, we got to come together. We got to talk. We got to be able to hear and listen to one another. We got to understand what values are. We got to seek wisdom. We got to be able to learn from our own mistakes. Until we learn from our mistakes and learn what it is that's going to make it happen. If that cake doesn't taste good, try something different. But also to our community, let's not blame. Let's figure out, find some solution. It's not how big the problem is, it's how big God is. So let's get it together.
Let me cut to the chase here just for 1 second. I'd like to know specifically what it is that you think will help these young mothers and these young women actually take hold of the resources that are there, because we got women gangbanging, we got women on the corners, we got women swinging on poles, we got kids who are being abused and abandoned. What can we do as women to come and take hold of some of the resources? I look at Corey and my heart is overwhelmed. He put in the work. What do women need to do?
I think the same. Well, you know, obviously we are different. Men and women are different, but I think that I want to recognize that too. But I also think that some of the basic foundation of living, the basic foundation of learning together and understanding what's going on is to make that happen. We do need the resources. And you know what? The resources is not with Obama. The resources is not with the mayor. The resources within ourselves. It's for putting things together and being able to recognize that we can make a difference, and we can make a difference. And if we learn together, we grow together. We grow together, and we recognize what works and what didn't work. What works on the west side may not work on the south side, and may not work with my daughter. But guess what? We have to be able to mix that bowl together and figure out what makes it happen. We have everything that we need, Miss Faison.
All right, here's what I want you to get to.
Okay.
We have everything we need, but we're not utilizing it. So I want you to look at that camera and tell that audience of young mothers, what's the first step you need to do? What's the second step? Whether it's education or get yourself recognize what's going on.
Wrap it up.
Really quickly, what is the core to us being able to be successful as women?
First is our self-worth, believing in ourselves, learning what it is, that who we are and where we're going to go.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. We want to thank you so much for watching. And once again, we want to thank CAN TV for giving us a platform. We excel with Reverend Katherine Jackson. We excel with the Corys of the Woodlawn area. We excel with the great Gaithers who come and give us a chance to not only to be, but to be our best. And we'll see you again next week. Same time.